From Idaho's News Channel 7, this is Viewpoint.
Welcome to Viewpoint. I'm Doug Petcash. The controversial new law that raises the bar for getting citizens' initiatives on the ballot goes before the Idaho Supreme Court this week. The legislature passed Senate Bill 1110 and the governor signed it into law during the recent legislative session. Opponents argue the law makes it nearly impossible to get an initiative on the ballot. Supporters argue increased requirements make the process more fair to rural Idaho. Idaho Supreme Court justices will hear their arguments on Tuesday. Today, an opponent and a supporter will lay out their cases here on Viewpoint. The previous ballot initiative law required signatures of 6% of registered voters in 18 of Idaho's 35 legislative districts. The new ballot initiative law requires signatures of 6% of registered voters in all 35 legislative districts. The citizens group Reclaim Idaho filed the challenge against the new law, and the Idaho Supreme Court decided to hear the case. It's the same group responsible for getting Medicaid expansion on the ballot in 2018 through a signature campaign. Voters ultimately approved that. In 2019, two bills passed the Idaho legislature which aimed to change the signature requirements to getting 10% of registered voters in 32 of Idaho's 35 legislative districts. Governor Brad Little vetoed both bills. He said he questioned the constitutional sufficiency of the bills and worried about a federal judge being the only voice in defining the process. He expressed similar legal concerns after signing the new law, but wrote that he believed it was a much closer legal call than the 2019 bills. There are two likely outcomes in the Idaho Supreme Court case. Justices could side with Reclaim Idaho and shoot down the law, or they could rule the new law stands. Luke Mayville is my first guest. He is the co-founder of the citizens group Reclaim Idaho. Good morning, Luke.
Good morning, Doug. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. So first of all, what do you think of the fact that the Supreme Court took up your case?
Well, it is an enormous relief for thousands of people around the state who are watching this really closely to know that the Supreme Court sees the urgency of this issue. They seem to recognize that this is, in fact, an urgent constitutional issue. It deals with a right that's been enshrined in our state constitution for over 100 years.
All right, so what is your main argument against the new law?
Well, the main argument is that this law would make it virtually impossible for grassroots organizations to qualify an initiative for the ballot. We don't think that it should be easy to get an initiative on the ballot. We think that any organization should have to work hard. Volunteers around the state should have to get involved. But you shouldn't make it so difficult that it's virtually impossible, because if you claim that the people ought to have a right to put something on the ballot, which our Constitution does enshrine that right, but then you turn around and make it impossible to exercise that right, it's really not much of a right at all.
So why is it so hard to get signatures in all 35 districts, though?
Well, we know that it was already extremely difficult to meet the 18 district requirement. Even before this new law went into effect, Idaho already had some of the most difficult signature rules in the country. So what everyone needs to understand is that the last set of rules were in place for about the last 8 years. There were 15 attempts by different groups to put initiatives on the ballot, 15 different initiatives. Only 2 of them made it on the ballot. So the previous rules were already so difficult that only 2 out of 15 made the ballot. It was extremely difficult to get the required number of signatures when we went out and collected signatures for Medicaid expansion. It was extremely difficult to even get to the 18 districts. Some people think signature gathering is really easy. So certainly a lot of people in the legislature seem to think it's really easy. What they don't understand is that a volunteer will go out sometimes for 2 hours knocking on doors of strangers. And in that 2 hours, they might collect just 8 valid signatures. Mm-hmm. So try doing that and collecting, the 2,000 signatures required in a district, and then try doing that 35 times in 35 different locations all around the state. It's an extremely high bar.
But in rural districts, 6% of voters would be a much smaller number of signatures needed than in the more populated districts, wouldn't it?
That's incorrect, because all districts are roughly equal population. So just to make this point really clear, All districts are roughly equal population, so that means the most rural districts are vast. So one district, for example, District 7, stretches from close to Sandpoint, where I'm from, clear down to Riggins. So almost half of the state it stretches across, and it kind of swivels around Coeur d'Alene and some of the other population centers. But some of these rural districts are larger than many of the states in the United States.
You touched on it a little bit, but one of the other arguments is that this measure ensures that the ballot doesn't become cluttered with a litany of initiatives. And you talked about the 15 cases. Is that historically true, or is that just, it's been that there have been more attempts in recent years?
It's really, it's kind of funny. I mean, if it weren't so disappointing that so many legislators are making this argument that we're afraid that the ballot will be cluttered. It's really, we just can't think of it as a good faith argument because there's no history in our state of the ballot being cluttered. We've been doing initiatives for about 80 years now, and only about 15 have passed, and only about 30 have ever made the ballot. So it's, in the last 8 years, only 2 initiatives made the ballot. So there are other states that have had this problem of a lot of initiatives appearing on the ballot. Here in Idaho, we have really a very noble history with the initiative process, where not many initiatives have made the ballot, and the ones that have made the ballot have been extremely important for the people of Idaho. It's been things like sunshine laws that made political corruption more difficult. It's been things like the Fish and Game Department, any number of really important things that people put on the ballot in order to give the people a voice in their government.
So why do you think that the previous law requiring signatures of 6% of registered voters in 18 of 35 legislative districts wasn't unfair to rural voters?
Oh, well, it's the simple argument here that is everyone we've talked to who's not a legislator is convinced by this, is that initiatives go to all voters in November. So everyone has a say. If rural voters don't like it, they can vote it down. And the fact of our history is that we have never had successful initiatives in Idaho that didn't have support from a great deal of support from rural Idaho. The legislature likes to talk a lot about Medicaid expansion. We're proud of Medicaid expansion. It's now secured health care for over 100,000 Idahoans, many of whom would never have otherwise had health care. And it won the majority of the vote in nearly every single county in Idaho. The vast majority of rural Idahoans voted for it. And that's just part of our history. It would be foolish for any campaign to simply focus only on the urban districts when putting an initiative on the ballot, because you gotta win over rural voters in November, in the November election, in order to actually enact an initiative and make it law.
Do you think that this new law was a direct response to the Medicaid expansion success?
Well, certainly the success of Medicaid expansion made it clear that the people of Idaho could use this process. We think that a lot of legislators assumed that the 18 districts already made it impossible, so they weren't worried. But then when people really rose up and put Medicaid expansion on the ballot, they got really worried because there are a lot of other things that are really popular with the people of Idaho that any number of lobbyists and legislators do not want to see on the ballot. And it's a shame because, look, the legislature still has most of the power. All the people of Idaho are asking for is from time to time to be able to propose a law themselves. I mean, people should not be mistaken about this. It is very clear that the intention of this new law is to keep things off the ballot. It's to prevent the people of Idaho from putting things on the ballot.
And we'll be able to get a response from Representative Jim Addis about that coming up here in the next segment of our show. Luke, we just have a couple of minutes left here. If the Supreme Court upholds the new law, what's your plan B?
We'll be thrilled if the Supreme Court. Let me back up. We expect the Supreme Court to strike down this law, and we will be thrilled if the court, really stands up and protects the rights of the people of Idaho. If the court upholds the new anti-initiatives law, we do have a backup plan. Our backup plan is to put forward the Initiative Rights Act, a ballot initiative that we have already filed with the Secretary of State. It's already actually been approved for signature collection. And what the Initiative Rights Act would do is it would restore the traditional signature gathering rules that Idaho has had for most of our history. And those rules would simply say we need signatures from 6% of registered voters statewide, regardless of which district those voters live in. Because we know that those traditional rules that existed for most of our history were already very difficult rules, and they already made it very difficult for initiatives to make it onto the ballot. But at least they made it possible for ordinary citizens to come together and use that constitutional right to have a voice in the lawmaking process.
Just 15 seconds left, Luke, but wouldn't that then really just allow initiative signature gathering campaigns to focus on the urban areas?
As I said before, it would be very foolish for any campaign to do that, because ultimately you have to win rural voters in order to win the vote. Everyone needs to remember that the signature gathering process is just to put an initiative on the ballot. Every voter in Idaho has a chance to vote an initiative down when the election comes around.
All right.
So
Luke, I'm sorry. Luke, yeah, we're out of time for this segment. I'm sorry for cutting you off there. I don't mean to be rude. Certainly that was not my intention. I appreciate your time. Thank you for laying out the case so clearly, and we'll certainly be watching what happens on Tuesday.
Thank you so much, Doug.
All right, take care. Up next, the other side of the debate. We'll hear from Republican Representative Jim Addis.
Journey to Tokyo, Tuesdays in the news at 6, featuring the culture, food, and overall spirit of the games. Watch Journey to Tokyo on Idaho's News Channel 7.
With your masquerading and you always contemplating what to do in case happiness found you. Hey, come on, baby, follow me. I'm the firefighter. Follow me. I'm the firefighter. And I'll show you where it's at.
With steel, the great American outdoors are closer than you think. Pick up at over 10,000 local steel dealers. Real steel. Find yours.
Inspiring a passion for health, fitness, and fun. Get ready for St. Luke's Fit One 2021. This year, choose how you want to race, in person or virtually. Meet us at the starting line on September 25th or set your own course. Sign up for just $30 during the registration kickoff June 30th, and you'll be entered to win gift cards to shop and support our local businesses. St. Luke's Fit One 2021. To learn more, visit ktvb.com/community.
Is your credit score getting in the way of the things you want to do? Personal loans through NetCredit offer fast and flexible lending. Borrow up to $10,000 and choose repayment terms that work for you. You may even be able to build your credit history as you repay. NetCredit, a more personal loan.
Now, you can get Idaho's top 7 headlines and the 7-day forecast in your inbox each morning. Go to ktvb.com/email to subscribe to the Daily 7.
Before we got into music, we actually had a different dream. Olympic glory. Thank you.
And welcome back to Viewpoint. On Tuesday, the Idaho Supreme Court will take up a challenge to the new state law that raises the bar for getting citizens' initiatives on the ballot. We heard from the co-founder of the citizens group Reclaim Idaho, which filed the case. My next guest is Republican State Representative Jim Addis of Coeur d'Alene, who was the floor sponsor of the bill in the House. Good morning, Representative Addis.
Good morning. Thank you.
And thank you for your time this morning. I want to start with the same question that I asked Luke. What do you think of the fact that the Supreme Court took up this case?
I think I'm not surprised. I think this is a change to our initiative process, and I'm looking forward to the case on Tuesday.
So what is your main argument as a sponsor of the legislation for the new law?
Well, quite frankly, just as I applaud our founding fathers on their wisdom, on the theory behind the Electoral College, I think it's important to allow everyone in Idaho to have a say in the formation of law. It's very, very important. I believe in the initiative process. I think it's a safety valve for the populace. I just think everyone should be involved in creating statute.
You heard Luke's argument that it basically makes it impossible to get an initiative on the ballot. Do you see it that way?
No, I don't. I mean, I think we can agree to disagree. It is different. It is different. It's important to note that we are not changing, or this statute does not substantially change the total amount of signatures required at all. That stays the same. It spreads them out into different locations. It's also good to know that there are already 18 districts that are getting, some would say, double the amount of signatures that they need, so you can reduce the amount of time spent there. What this really boils down to is the 17 other districts. And I had an analysis done by the Attorney General's office, and on average, it's about 1,811 signatures in those districts over 18 months. That comes down to, if we're just going to do some simple math, at 102 signatures a month, 26 a week, 4 a day. If you round up by the 20% for bad signatures, that's 5 signatures a day. That I don't think it's unreasonable to ask that in such a serious effort as creating law for all of us. With the advances in our transportation system, our infrastructure, our bridges, our roads, the amount of roads, the dramatic improvement in our communication from Facebook to the internet, to our data processing, where we know who lives where and who has voted in the past primaries and how they vote. It's so very easy to target and look for signatures. So I don't see this as being dramatically harder. I see this as being different. And I've got a reputation for being an inclusive and a reasonable consensus building legislator. And I think it's not unreasonable to do this with our initiative process, and quite frankly, I think improve our initiative process.
One of the arguments that we've heard is that it does make it more difficult, and then to keep them off the ballot, so rural voters may be disenfranchised because they wouldn't have that chance to vote once the initiative makes it onto a November ballot. I take it you disagree with that argument.
I don't. Again, I think it's different. For the extra people you'll have in these other areas, you're going to have fewer people in other areas. It's also interesting to note that this, again, let's not confuse it with counties. This is a district-wide vote, so or a collection effort. So, for example, in I think it's District 8, you could collect them in McCall or Emmett, or just McCall or just Emmett. I think what this does, again, is it brings inclusiveness to all of our citizens to be involved in this process. And I just think that's vitally important. I think it strengthens the initiative process. I think that a good initiative is going to hit the ballot. I mean, part of this is the quality of the initiative and what people want to see happen. So I think the more that we can involve our citizens in the process, I think it's a much better process and a much more robust process.
Was another concern that ballots could have a litany of initiatives on them?
No, I never. Not to me. I don't think that's a huge concern. I think a frivolous initiative is going to be seen as a frivolous initiative and not get signatures anyway. I think this is just a matter of bringing more Idahoans into the process. And I think it's just as simple as that.
Was it a response to the success of the Medicaid expansion campaign? There were attempts in 2019, and now this one was successful to get a new initiative law. Was it in response to the success of Medicaid expansion in 2018?
I don't think so. Again, 2019 was my first year in the legislature, and there was a lot going on. I've been involved in modernizing our initiative code. I passed a code last year that had broad bipartisan support in the legislature. I think this is looking down the road. This is a bill that doesn't favor a Republican or a Democrat, in that it will cut both ways. Today's majority often is tomorrow's minority, and it'll be just as difficult, or just as easy, if you will, to get initiatives done, no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. So I think it's just good policy. I think it's good to include most Idahoans, or the geography of Idaho, the people in all these areas, when we're talking about creating law.
Do you have any expectations as to how the Supreme Court will rule on this?
Boy, I don't. I do know that the Ninth and 10th Circuit have ruled federally in favor of geographical distributions. I know that Judge Nye has recently ruled that he has upheld Idaho's geographic requirements for signatures because they are equal, essentially equal populations for districts. Nevada was upheld for in their congressional districts. Colorado was upheld getting signatures in every one of their districts for a Senate run. So I think there's precedents out there, and I think, and I'm looking forward to the case next week.
Will you be there in court?
I will not. I will be here in Coeur d'Alene.
Well, if the two likely outcomes here, of course, they could shoot down the law or uphold it. If the Supreme Court does shoot down this new law, do you think that there will be an attempt next session with maybe some different configuration? Because, you know, we saw this law is configured differently than the one that the governor vetoed, the two that the governor vetoed a couple years ago. So do you think there might be another attempt with a different configuration to address this issue?
You know, it's hard to tell. I think there probably would be something that comes of this, in that I think it's so vitally important to be inclusive for Idahoans. And I just think, I think it's a good bill. I think it should stand muster. It was crafted. I did a lot of research with the Attorney General's office, and it's going to come down to the Supreme Court. But I would imagine that this will be addressed again if it is rejected by the Supreme Court.
And do you have any idea how long it might be until the Supreme Court gives a ruling? Could it be as early as Tuesday?
You know, I think anything's possible. I don't even bet on football games anymore. So I would think that it'll be a rather quick judgment. I think the issues are there for everyone to see, and but I don't see it on Tuesday. But you know, who knows?
Well, they did take up the case quickly because of, you know, the urgency of the issue, as you and Luke both mentioned. So
yep,
we'll keep watching it for sure. And Senator Addison, this is the first time I've had an opportunity to talk to you, and I want to thank you for your time and for laying out your arguments on this case.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to meet you, sir. Well, still ahead on Viewpoint. Bravery, loyalty, service. All qualities this Idaho Vietnam veteran possesses. You can probably add patience to that list. We'll explain.
We're Thrive Cosmetics, and our Liquid Lash Extensions Mascara creates show-stopping lashes that won't plump, flake, or smudge. 100% vegan, cruelty-free, and powered by our high-performance formula. There's a reason this mascara has over 275,000 five-star reviews. Come discover why at thrivecosmetics.com.
The sale of the season is here. It's the Star Spangled July 4th sale at Furniture Row. Shop today and save big, because it's all on sale. All living, all dining, all bedroom, and all mattresses. Check out amazing doorbusters while supplies last. Plus, make your money go further with 7 years no interest financing and free shipping right to your doorstep. But don't wait. The Star Spangled July 4th sale at Furniture Row ends Thursday the 1st.
I'm Dr. Christine Hahn. I'm an infectious disease doctor, and I'm Idaho's medical director for public health. It's my mission to keep our communities healthy and safe. That's why I believe every Idahoan should get their COVID-19 vaccine. The vaccine's been tested. It's proving to be very safe, and it's the most effective tool we have to stop the spread.
Walk into a pharmacy or visit covidvaccine.idaho.gov to find your free COVID-19 vaccine.
We can fly where you want to. We can leave your house behind. But if your friends don't mask, and why don't they mask? Well, they won't fly this airline.
You can fly if you want to, 'cause we do safety right. We have air that's clean and disinfectant machines zapping germs like an arcade space fight. And we dance to the dance, do the dance, have the filters cleaning commence. Alaska Safety Dance. Alaska Safety Dance.
Challenged Athletes Foundation of Idaho is pleased to support KTVB's broadcast of the U.S. Paralympic Super Trials. Challenged Athletes Foundation, empowering lives through sport. Tune in this Sunday at 11:30 for Paralympic trial coverage on KTVB.
An Idaho Vietnam War veteran has finally received a long overdue military honor. Bill Clovis of Swan Valley in eastern Idaho received a Purple Heart last week, 52 years after he was hit by friendly fire. He was just 17 years old at the time and only 10 months into his tour as a Marine in Vietnam. Since the injury, he has suffered from PTSD, something the Marine Corps didn't recognize as an official injury until 2001. Last week, our 208 team spoke with Bill's daughter about her fight to get her dad his Purple Heart. After 2 denials, Bill was finally awarded the medal to recognize him for his bravery and loyalty and as a hero to the American people.
I would like to, if I could, dedicate this to former veterans that I was with in Vietnam. Even with the welcoming that we got when we came home, which was everybody turning their heads up at us, was so hard to take. Especially when I had comrades that I laid next to until they took their last breath.
More than 1.8 million service members have received the award since it was created in 1782. You can learn more about Bill's journey to get his Purple Heart at ktvb.com, and we thank Bill for his service to our country. That's all of our time for this week's Viewpoint. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Doug Petcash. I'll see you tomorrow on Wake Up Idaho, and right back here next Sunday morning for another Viewpoint.